Hey guys, Cameron here from Aces. Hopefully you guys can hear me alright. Recording this on my old laptop with a horrible webcam. But anyway, as all of you guys know, RMIT's had to shut down everything due to COVID-19. Nothing's going to reopen in semester one, and it looks like lectures and all face-to-face content's going to be delivered online again for the remainder of semester two. We're not really sure when anything's going to open up again. We know this is hard for everyone during this time. I mean, it's hard for us. It's pretty difficult to run a club when you can't have any face-to-face events. So we've seen a lot of different things being tried to try and still give content to the students and try and help people out in whatever way we can. As some of you might know, we normally run an annual networking event. So we bring a whole bunch of companies together, we get them in a room, we'll have a panel discussion. Students can kind of have a talk to these people and get a better understanding of what their jobs could be in the field of process engineering or in chemical engineering, and just find out what's going on with these companies, who's good, who's bad, and then get an idea of what kind of industry or what sector they want to go into. Fortunately, that was meant to happen about 2 months ago. Because of the virus, we actually had to postpone that event. And postpone it indefinitely. We're not sure when or if we might be able to get that event back up and running before the end of the year. It may happen. It may be that we just have to push that back till next year. We just don't know. But we're always trying to make sure that we can give you guys the best experience you can at uni and give you all the help that you need to find that first job. So what we've done instead is we've come up with this web-based podcast series that we're calling Industry Insights. And it's designed as like a one-on-one interview session with experienced engineers across a broad range of industries to give you guys a better idea of what that day-to-day kind of life is in different jobs, and what some of these different companies are like to work for, what they're focused on, and just how to really nail that first job, break into the industry, and what you can kind of expect as you're doing that. So this is a new experience for us. We're not really sure exactly how everything's going to work. It's going to kind of evolve as it goes on. We're hoping to do them on a pretty regular basis. I think that at the moment we're looking at every 2-3 weeks or so, just depending on how many companies we can get on board at this point. But the whole idea is that it's kind of a involved, interactive process. So we want you guys to be kind of sending us different questions, kind of commenting what companies you'd like to see, who you'd like to hear from, and just really what you want to know out of these sessions. And we'll do our best to try and incorporate all of that into the next interviews that go on. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the series. Let us know below what you'd like to see from it, and if there's anything we can do to make it a bit better for you guys. But yeah, without further ado, here's the first episode. Hope you guys like it. Hey guys, welcome to the first episode we've got here of our new Industry Insights podcast. We're hoping to make these a weekly or a fortnightly kind of event, depending on how we can get them all organised. They're all aimed at replacing the industry night that we normally run every year for you guys. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, that has been indefinitely delayed. When we're not sure when we're going to be able to run that. We're hoping sometime in semester two, but even that's looking a bit unlikely at this point. So what we've come up with instead is this kind of one-in-one interview format where we kind of put a spotlight on some of the companies out there that you guys might be interested in, to try and give you guys a bit more just general knowledge about the industry, how to get in, and what kind of are the day-to-day activities that are going on. So first of all, welcome for the first episode. I'm here with Will Harris. He's one of the graduate members of IXOM. So he's been working for the company for a couple of years, but I might actually just let you introduce yourself first.
Yeah, hello everyone. Like Cam said, my name's Will. I'm a graduate from Monash, and yeah, I've been at IXOM for nearly 2.5 years now. I've done a few rotations which sort of diverge from the engineering field, but now back on site in a mechanical engineering role actually. But it's all very flexible, as you'll find once you get into the workplace.
Definitely. So when you say rotations, are you swapping around the business a lot, or you're mainly, so you're a chemical engineering graduate, right? Or
yeah, well, technically environmental actually, but I did the chemical or process engineering stream of environmental engineering, so I did a chem eng finding a project and that sort of thing.
Okay, cool.
Rotations. So IXOM has in the grad program, you do 3 12-month rotations. So the idea being that you learn the role for 6 months, starting to contribute more and more, and then the second 6 months, the second half of the year, you're actually fulfilling that role.
Okay.
It's really good in that you can sort of diverge, or you can just do 3 different engineering rotations as well. But I did supply chain in my first rotation, which was way different, and then I did safety in my second rotation, which was different again. And then like I said, now back into the engineering thing.
Okay, very cool. So how many more rotations have you got left? Because you mentioned you're on the grad program. Are you towards the back end of this now, or kind of just halfway through?
Yeah, so I've got about 6 months to go.
Okay.
Well, 7, 8 months, something like that.
For in terms of a grad program, how have you been enjoying it? Is it a nice kind of change, swapping it up every 6 months to a year or so, or would you kind of prefer just staying in that one entry position you applied for?
No, I think it's been fantastic, especially for me. It's been really good to try some different things. I didn't really know what to expect with any of them, and then I didn't know what to expect with engineering. But the 12 months length, I feel, is a really good amount of time to give you that chance to actually learn the role and then contribute for a while, which I think is super important. You find while you're not contributing, it can be really taxing because you feel like you're just a drag on the team. So then to be able to actually fulfill that role is really good.
Okay, this is awesome to hear. But more importantly, I suppose I should say, for the people who probably don't know IXOM too well, how about you give us? Can you give us a bit of a background about the company?
Yeah, so we're a chemicals company, formerly Orica Chemicals. So Orica is a big mining organisation, and their chemical branch got sold and became IXOM. So we've been around for about 4 years, maybe a bit longer, coming up to 5 maybe. So young in the sense that we're only 4 and a bit years old, but a huge background from Orica, and then before Orica, ICI, which is one of the founding chemical companies of the world. IXOM, we're a chemicals company. Our big thing is chloroalkali manufacture. So chloroalkali products being chlorine, obviously, but then hydrochloric acid, caustic soda, sodium hypochlorite are our big manufactured products. But then about 2/3 of the business is around imports and distribution. So a lot of different mining chemicals. We also have a branch that's around flavors and fragrances and colorings for food. Very diverse, but all around chemicals.
Okay. So what would you say is the main focus of the company? Would it be more those industrial chemical side of things, or more kind of your fragrances and your food additives, or some other component?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the way that the company is broken down is that each sort of function gets its own sort of area, while the organisation interacts with everyone to try to get best practices across the different business areas. The business areas themselves are individual in a sense. So chlorine manufacture is sort of our bread and butter, but in saying that, we've sort of saturated the market available to us in Australia. So the big growth areas are the sort of the specialty treatment chemicals and potentially flavors and fragrances too. So talking about focus, like the biggest portion of the business is around chlorine manufacture, but where the business is driving for improvement is around the other sort of more specialized areas.
Okay, cool, very cool. So you mentioned you've been on a few different rotations around the business. So what particular aspects have you been working on, or kind of what fields mainly have you covered in your rotations?
Yep. So I started in supply chain. So it was really interesting to get an understanding of the scale of supply chain. So I was a supply chain coordinator, which meant that I would raise purchase orders and then monitor the order from its conception to delivery.
Okay.
So I'd work with what's called a product manager, who would forecast how much they would need and manage the guys managing the customer side of things. So there's there's a whole bunch of steps and links in the chain there.
From when you kind of get into those large industrial bulk orders and such.
Yeah. So we had the one product manager who would be working with 4 or 5 different account managers who were working with the customers, and then to me, who was working with the supplier and the transporters to get the product from A to B.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really good. It was really good rotation to get an understanding of the scale of the company itself, understanding how much stuff we actually move. In that rotation, I got to do a bit of project work around tendering. So everything we move gets obviously moved by a transport company. So we go out to different transport companies for different legs of the journey and say, what's the best price you can do for us? This is what we're expecting to move.
Okay.
So I got to deal with a lot of the analysis on that, deal with a lot of the different guys that are doing the forecasting for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, get a really good understanding of the scale of the business.
So had you had any kind of experience doing that at all before working at IXOM, or just learnt it all on the job?
Yeah, learned it all on the job. And that's one of the really good things about the graduate program. There's an understanding that especially if you're not getting dropped into engineering, where you should have some sort of background, which kind of made me more nervous than any of the other ones. Like going into the other rotations, I was like, yeah, good. They know I'm starting from zero.
Yeah.
But going into the engineering, it's like, oh, what am I expected to know?
There's that level of expectation that they want you to kind of fulfill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. But definitely, there's an understanding in the business that the grads are there to learn primarily and then contribute. So yeah, there was definitely enough support there to do the learning.
So was that your only kind of rotation there, or have you done like 2 or 3? You said.
Yeah, so that was the first one. So I did 12 months in supply chain. Then I moved to the SH&E team, so safety, health, and environment.
Yeah.
So that was more on the manufacturing side of the business. So that was a good sort of transition step from traded chemicals to our manufacturing side, because obviously most of our risk is in making the chemicals, or perceived risk anyway, is in us making chemicals. So a lot of our plants are what are called major hazard facilities.
Yeah.
And that's a definition given by the authorities and comes with a set of sort of mandatory regulations that you have to follow. Yeah. So a big portion of that is sort of internal auditing and then management of procedures and things like that. Just in terms to make sure we're compliant.
Yeah, in terms of like focus by IXOM on that safety aspects, we're taught a lot about it, and obviously it's becoming more and more important as we move into the future. How big a focus would you say is placed on safety and those kind of procedures and emergency orders and such that kind of have to go on these days?
Yeah, so it's sort of a core value of IXOM, and it really kind of has to be a core value of any business in sort of a high risk business. That safety has to come first and foremost. At every level of the business, from the operator up to the CEO, everyone has the responsibility to manage their safety, and they have the ability to stop doing anything they deem to be unsafe. The safety team isn't a huge team in itself, and that's because the role of being safe is distributed. It's what's called a line management function. So it's your manager's responsibility to keep you safe, if that makes sense. It's not the safety team's job, because that makes it external. It's got to be integral into every part of the business.
Level of responsibility from every employee within the business, and that kind of different range of responsibilities and kind of objectives that are involved for them. Yeah, definitely. So what about you working on right now then? You've obviously moved on to a different team. What are you working on right now?
So I'm working at one of our big chloralkali plants in Laverton as a mechanical engineer. So I'm in what's called our reliability team. So we manage the maintenance of things and then a few improvement projects as well. What I'm actually working on at the moment, so there's one of our towers has to be replaced, and the tank underneath it has to be inspected. So I'm managing the contractor interface with them in preparation for our next shutdown to get that to happen. Just making sure that the scope of work's all there and that everyone's ready to go. And I guess my biggest project at the moment it kind of relates back well to my safety rotation. So we feel our business, IXOM itself, is the only business in Australia to bottle chlorine. So we fill a lot of chlorine cylinders, and the way those are filled, we've got a project on at the moment that to improve the way they're filled, so that the operators there are at less risk, because there's a lot of sort of pushing and rolling and shoving of those cylinders that can lead to longer term injuries. So yeah, a big project to and hopefully gets approved to really improve that area so that everything's being lifted mechanically and moves around mechanically, to keep those operators healthy.
Yeah, obviously, and I suppose when you kind of mechanize some aspects of that production, you do see like increased throughput rates and
potentially
shorter downtimes and whatnot. So what kind of general responsibilities are you kind of given in your day-to-day roles? Are you kind of managing a whole team of people, or are you just kind of flitting between little bits of work that kind of come your way, or what normally happens in a day for you?
Yeah, it's sort of all of the above. I spend most of my time getting ready for sort of project sort of things, but certainly as things come up, and wherever I can, I put my hand up and try to get involved. Like something simple, like the other day, we were putting up some sheeting around a tank because the tank was slightly too close to the bund walls, and there was a potential for it to leak over the edge of the bund wall. So we was putting up some sheeting, so just helping out the maintenance team there hold up that sheeting. But yeah, most of my time spent on the computer, doing a bit of modeling, doing some sort of cost estimates, that type of thing, running through different actions that people have raised, that type of thing. So day to day, no real like day to day, okay, every morning I have to do this, that and the other, but more longer term type things at the moment.
Okay, it's cool. So just going back to maybe your supply chain experience would be the best one for this, but just kind of in terms of modernization moving forward, have you kind of seen that there's been a rise in demand for industrial chemicals, and that kind of supply and demand maybe being contested a little bit with just trying to get the products out to the customers, obviously, and trying to find new sources for some of these materials to actually produce these chemicals? Would you say that overall, in general, there's a larger increase in demand for these chemicals, and do you reckon we're actually meeting that supply in Australia or by IXOM?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely growth in what IXOM's seeing. So a large portion of our business is in water care, as you would know.
Yeah.
Just water treatment.
No, I actually work for IXOM part-time at the moment, out of the water care division. One of my other colleagues from that department, some of you might know, Natalie Tanis, was actually meant to be joining us today for the first episode, but she's unfortunately had to be called away to a site up in New South Wales. So we'll try and get you that episode on the water care side of things at another date. But I'll let you keep going, Will.
Yep. So that's sort of a real essential service, that water treatment and water care, and the chemicals that we produce and import for that are essential services. So when you talk about the supply and are we meeting supply, IXOM sort of has a responsibility to meet supply. We have supply agreements with our customers, and with certain authorities that we have to have these chemicals available. So with COVID at the moment, there's a potential that so a very, very quick background into how operators work. We have 4 different groups of 5 people that run the plant in 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts. And if we lost one of those or a couple of those, there might be times that the plant wouldn't be running and wouldn't be producing chlorine. So in response to COVID, we had to speak with the authorities and increase storage capacity of chlorine. So that if we did lose a shift or however much, we could ensure that we were still had a supply of chlorine for water treatment. And same with some of our imported things, where we have supply agreements with our customers. We have to make sure that we have different suppliers for those chemicals. We might, go to the cheapest one who can make us the most, but we have to have contingency plans so that if that supplier is no longer sending us stuff, which was definitely the case through COVID with a lot of the chemicals coming out of China. We had to be able to go to different customers, different suppliers to ensure that our customers had their chemicals.
Just building on that, with the whole COVID situation that's been going on, have you seen much supply chain disruption? I mean, obviously everyone's trying to minimize it as much as possible, but sometimes it seems to be unavoidable, especially when you see like state borders closing and whatnot, and you might have some suppliers being completely cut off from access to you, or you're completely cut off from some customers. Have you seen much challenges in that, and maybe how have you been trying to work to fix those?
So it's definitely settled now, because obviously chemicals can't carry the virus. It's people and surfaces and things. So there was definitely a couple of weeks of sort of hysteria where everything that we're trying to bring into the country was getting stopped, and we weren't sure where they were getting stopped and that type of thing. So there was a lot of confusion around that. But that was more of a hysteria thing, as I mentioned. But yeah, now that that's settled, we're sort of back on track. But what has happened is that we've had to temporarily close head office, which is where all of our supply chain personnel are based. So they're all working from home now, which they can do, but you sort of lose that ability to interact really easily with someone next door to you, to just say, hey, could you give me a quick hand with this? I can't remember how to do this, that sort of thing.
Slows everything down that little bit extra.
Yeah. So that's I guess the biggest challenge with our supply chain at the moment, because things are starting to open up again as people, as methods of making sure that we're doing it safely developed on the carrier side of things. So it's just a matter of us being able to manage our teams.
So like all of that considered, and maybe even just before COVID, what would you say would be the biggest challenge towards like the chemical industry itself moving forward? In just like the current Australian climate.
So for IXOM, we've got our core business of chlorine, which is sort of really safe for us, because, like I said, we're the only business that bottles chlorine.
Yeah, it's good to have a monopoly.
So we got that monopoly on that market. But on the things that we're trading and the chlorine derivatives, so there are other chloroalkali plants in Australia, lots of them. They just don't bottle chlorine. So they're all making hydrochloric acid and the other chlorine derivatives. So our biggest challenge, I guess, is them, and also international markets that are making them cheaper. So like I said, we've got the big traded chemicals business, but where the sort of the international companies are starting to compete with us on manufactured chemicals. That's a big challenge for us, with our labour costs and our different standards that we have to meet, which are all awesome and are all keeping everyone safe, but they do cost money.
Yeah, of course. You've always got to try and meet that bottom line and try and make sure you still have that competitive market price, which is always tough. Yeah,
absolutely.
Maybe let's just talk a bit more about yourself and how did you actually find yourself in this role at IXOM?
So I guess kind of by accident, I was looking at chemical engineering jobs and saw IXOM advertising for chemical engineers and thought great, and had a big read up on the business and thought this looks awesome. And then went to progress and realised that it was advertised in Sydney and not Melbourne. And I'm pretty well based in Melbourne. But then I noticed they were advertising for a supply chain graduate. And chemical engineering.
So it was more like a sideways step to try and get into the company that you kind of saw.
And reading into the grad program, I saw that it was rotation based and that sort of thing, and thought, this might be a great way to get into the company, like you said, to a sideways entrance. And then in that supply chain role, I actually really enjoyed it and learnt a whole heap, and was really glad that that's sort of the way it happened. And I really encourage all the grads at IXOM, and I encourage anyone that gets the opportunity to branch out, especially if it's only for 12 months or so.
Just take every opportunity you can, type thing.
You can always get back into your bread and butter, but giving something a shot on a time frame is something I'd highly recommend to everyone.
Definitely. And how did you actually find that first year out of university? Was it a steep learning curve? I mean, obviously you weren't kind of going directly into something you exactly started at university, so it might have been a bit of challenging at start. But did you find you picked it up quickly, or did you still find it challenging for that first kind of year?
Yeah, it's very different, man. Like 99% of uni is really easy. And obviously that 1% the week before exams is really hard.
Yeah.
But like, I remember like whinging about 9 a.m. lectures and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's so easy. Well, I can't go out on a Thursday night. That's awful.
Good old uni.
That's simple. Work a full-time job.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that gets most people when they start that first job is the time commitment. It's a huge step up. You might not be trying to learn a completely new subject for the entire time you're there, but it's just making sure you're committing and you're still working on something for 40 odd hours a week. It can be quite daunting for some people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So having that in mind, well, like, what kind of advice would you give to people who are kind of wrapping up their degrees or maybe only partway through their degrees right now, just about trying to find that first job or maybe where they should be looking, type thing?
The big one is keep trying. Like everyone gets knocked back a bunch. So just keep applying. It'll happen. Apply to a variety of things. It really, it's not so important where you end up because it's really not forever, especially in this day and age. Your first career is not going to be your last career.
Yeah.
As far as actually like improving like your employability and that type of thing, like there's only going to be a handful of guys in every cohort that get their job purely based on their academics. There can only be one person that's the best in the cohort at academics. So I'd really encourage people to diversify themselves. Like I think what really got me my job was a bit of volunteering I'd done in a gap year overseas. And that type of thing, it's sort of things that show that you can work in a team, things that show that you're a good person in general is important.
So like a high value placed on those kind of extra skills that you might not learn directly in university, just kind of personal skills and stuff like that.
Like every business will have, or apart from startups and that type of thing, they'll have their core expertise. And they'll try and be the best that they can be at that. And yes, you're bringing in knowledge and that type of thing, but what you're really bringing is an attitude and yourself. You'll learn on the job. You really don't graduate from an engineering degree ready to be a senior engineer. You graduate. You've demonstrated that you can do it.
Yeah,
and that's about it. You got to learn the rest on the go.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I really encourage everyone to do a bit of that sort of left the field activities, sport, I don't know, anything, dancing, all that type of stuff looks really good on your CV.
Definitely. So you mentioned you came through the grad program, and obviously you're kind of wrapping it up right now. Could you maybe give the listeners a bit of an idea of the IXOM grad program? Like, is it just for graduate students? Do they have an intern program, and just kind of what's involved? I mean, I know we've touched on it a little bit, but just kind of brief details.
Yep. Again, so high level, it's a 3-year program with 3 12-month rotations. It's a smaller program than others, with the real focus of employing you at the end of it. It's not one of those ones that will take 100 and cull 75% of people, and we'll keep the best 25. It's we hired you because we want you, and you're here to learn and then be employed and contribute back to IXOM itself. So I think we have something like a 85+% retention rate on graduates, and that's purely based on graduates wanting to go off and do different things. Like I haven't heard of any grad being turned away at the end of their 3 years. So it's a really good program in that sense. As far as interns and things, I don't believe we have a formal intern program, but there obviously have been interns now and then, as Cam can attest to.
I think so obviously a little bit, but yeah. No, it's been fun while I've been there. So yeah, I mean, thanks for chatting to us today. Obviously, I think you've provided great insight to kind of for people who might be interested in kind of working in that supply chain or chemical kind of distribution side of the business while still having that kind of engineering background, and just kind of seeing some of the variability you can have with your degree and where you can kind of take it. So thanks for joining us, mate. And
Oh,
yeah,
well,
we
good,
might
Ken.
leave it there for today, and yeah, good luck in all your future endeavours.
Thank you very much. I'll catch you later.